Hey guys, sorry that it's been so long since my last video. I've gotten really caught up in a lot of other things and just simply haven't really had the time or energy I wanted to create these as fast as I wanted. I did, however, promise to finish one more video before 3.0 launched, and here's that promise. A while ago, I did a vote on what video should be next. Any boss from any instance was fair game as long as I had a video of it, and Bindings of Blood Lord Greenscale won that vote with Mailforge as a close second. I'm a total noob, and for some reason, I don't understand all the mechanics of this fight. So to properly inform everyone, developer Anani has actually agreed to come on and help explain to me a little bit. He is the designer of this fight, so I guess I could assume he knows it better than anyone else. I guess this will be a lot different than any other videos I've done in the past, as this will be kind of more a narration type deal with little segments thrown in here and there rather than just reading mostly from a script I wrote previously, so I apologize in advance for how crappy this might turn out. Anything to say, Anani?
Hi, I'm Devanani. This is my favorite shop on Citadel.
Thank you, Commander Shepard. For Lord Greenscale and Bindings of Blood, the general composition for progression is 2 tanks, 4 AoE healers we used in this, 2 Chloros, 2 Wardens, 1 Purifier as a tank healer, 1 Defiler, and as always, 1 Bard or Oracle plus an Archon. Okay,
It might be worth noting that Fizztac would be quite valuable here.
probably, but they generally are in every fight, so. In this fight, there are 5 usable NPCs, which was kind of a new theme set up for a lot of this Tier 3 content. There is Durns, who purges a shield that comes on later in the fight. There is Thorvin, who has an AoE cleanse, which Anani will get to, as I honestly didn't even know what it did. There's Diona, which is a damage reduction on the ground that is used for a few key abilities. There's Del, which is a damage increase, and then there is Amunet, who is a big AoE freeze that basically just freezes a bunch of ads in place.
Well, let's start with the obvious. Don't stand in the bad. There's a red circle. It's around Greenscale. If you stand in it, you're going to die. Don't stand in the bad.
Yeah, Venom Cloud generally isn't a very good thing to stand in. It also is worthy to note, he pointed this out earlier, is that apparently it does range damage. I didn't know this, it hits the whole raid,
Yes, it does the range pulse damage.
so that is one interesting thing.
He does look like he has Caustic Bulwark on him, which has to be purged. And that stacks you see of Caustic Bulwark are the number of procs it has in response to player auto attacks. So if you don't purge it, then it can proc up to 10 times, doing damage to the nearest 5 people every time.
Okay, so basically just purge that and you're good.
That's right.
Okay, and so this next mechanic you're seeing is Noxious Fumes, which is one of his 2 main tank abilities. He will breathe on the tank, dealing fairly heavy damage, and then apply a 75% healing reduction, I believe.
That lasts for 35 seconds, yes.
35 seconds. Okay, so after he finishes casting Noxious Fumes, your other tank is going to want to move into position, so your other tank basically doesn't die. Make sure to not run in too early, because if you do, both tanks will get hit by it, and that's probably a wipe. Okay, so Anani, explain what these Night Blooms are, because these are one of the mechanics that I really don't know about.
Night blooms are directly related to voracious fungal growth, which is that cleanse mechanic where if you cleanse while it's on you, it spreads to the entire raid and does horrific damage, and you really don't want that to happen. So the Night Bloom aura actually dispels voracious fungal growth. It shuts down all life regeneration within it. But it also reduces all incoming healing by 75%, so you kind of want to be selective about where you use it.
Okay, and which one is Voracious Fungal Growth? Is that green-looking debuff that
The
Dartless
Green
has?
Skull, yes,
The
the Green
green
Skull.
skull? Okay. And how exactly do you cleanse that then? Because I
Somebody
seriously
who is
don't
not
know.
you must cleanse. If you have it and you try to cleanse, you will trigger it on the entire raid, whereas if somebody else doesn't have it and they cleanse it for you, you're good.
Okay, so then now I'm confused. The purpose of the Night Bloom is to prevent that from spreading, you said.
That's right. In
Okay.
the event that it spreads to the entire raid, you can use a Night Bloom to recover.
Okay.
You
And
can
then you
also
just
use it to cleanse off a person who can't be cleansed for some reason. Let's say they're the only cleanser left alive for some odd reason.
okay. So then you just have to cope with this temporary minus 75% heal debuff.
Yes, it's an aura effect, so as soon as you leave that area, you'll be fine.
Also, one thing during this fight that might be good to note is that he constantly throws out those pollen, which is basically just more stay out of bat. At 75%, he will go up into the air, which starts phase 2. Basically, he will start spawning some ads, Verdant Wardens, which I guess were spawning a little bit earlier. They will shield Lord Greenscale, and you'll need to use Durns to purge Greenscale, although it's a fairly small shield. First, toxic shamblers will be spawning from 3 different pit locations that your tanks all need to pick up and drag to the outside of the raid. Once I guess they're in position, your raid will need to start AoEing all of the shamblers down. Upon death of the shamblers, though, they will leave a giant red or a giant green circle on the ground, and I believe it debuffs you up to how many stacks? Do you know off the top of your head?
I believe it's 200 is the maximum stacks a person can get.
200. Okay, I've never seen it go past like 10 because I always die.
It does a lot of damage.
Okay, so yeah, kill the shamblers. Make sure your tanks kite them away from the raid, or else they'll die. A few seconds later, is it timed? Is it like 30 seconds later? The Verdant Annihilator
That's
Lifebound
right, it is
Beast.
timed. It
Okay,
is timed.
so
And it is approximately 35 seconds, yes.
okay, so after then, the Lifebound Beast, Lifebound Stalkers, and Verdant Annihilator will come out, as you can see. So one thing that Anani pointed out that I didn't realize is that those wolves, the Lifebound Stalkers, had a stacking bleed on the tank. The bear has a frontal AoE, and does the Verdant Annihilator do anything special, or is he
Well,
just
when
there
he
to die?
dies, he's there to die, but he also actually hits kind of hard, and I think that's it. I think that's it.
Okay. Oh, rabies. The beast casts rabies on the active tank, and is there any way to actually get rid of rabies? Because
Yes, it's
after
cleansing. It's
it
just 5 seconds
okay.
before it goes off.
Oh,
But
really?
after it goes off, you can't cure rabies. It's like real rabies. You
Okay.
have to get the rabies shots, otherwise you're in trouble.
Okay. So when the Verdant Annihilator dies, a pulsing circle will appear on him. Basically, your entire raid will want to stack on that area. It'll provide you from a shield from when the uh, big bad guy, what is his name?
The Draconoth of
Yeah,
Fate.
Dragonoth's Fate. Thank you. My memory is terrible. He comes down, does a big raid wide AoE, and it hits really hard. So you need to be in that circle, or else you'll be one shot. And that's kind of where rabies comes into play. If you have rabies and you wander out of the circle, you're gonna die, which happens quite a bit actually, or at least it happened to us. This is also a good time to use Diona for the damage reduction shield. It just helps mitigate the damage a little bit more, I suppose. So Hypertoxin is the other big nuke on the tank that he has. It is a big red circle placed on the tank after a cast, and it does a ton of damage. We recommend, or at least I recommend, getting through it by simply just cheesing it using unstable transformation on the tank, but it can also be, I guess, mitigated properly, or however you want to say it, by using both tanks stacking inside of the red circle, and it will split the damage equally between the two tanks.
It's actually designed to share with 20 people. If you have 20 people stacked, it will do virtually nothing.
Really,
That's
I
correct.
learn more about this fight every sentence, pretty much.
Although he does have a frontal cleave, so you need to be very careful about how you time that.
I
There
see.
is a grace period of 8 seconds, but if you mess it up, you're dead.
So at 50%, Greenscale will go up into the air, and as you can see, immediately starts channeling a giant laser. Your raid will basically just want to get out of this as soon as possible. You're probably going to die unless you're a tank and get caught in it. You'll also see that he spawns a murderous overgrowth plant-looking thing, and a petrified oak tree. What is your official name for that?
Petrified Genesis Oak.
Okay, thank you. So the Petrified Genesis Oak has a cone, so a conal AoE, so your tank will want to keep it away from the raid. It's a knockback. The Murderous Overgrowth will come out with the shield, and that's when you also use Durns to purge it. You'll DPS him down, interrupt both of his casts if Phylotoxin, am I pronouncing that right?
That's right.
If Phylotoxin gets off, what exactly does that do?
Phytotoxin is just an AoE dot to the raid.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
if Entangling Vines goes out, it'll basically summon your entire raid to your location, and they'll probably die, or at least take a lot of damage in later phases. So when the Murderous Overgrowth dies, you can see that the Crimson Mascades, the 3 flowers on the ground, spawn. They will give you a stacking debuff that stack up to 10 times, that give you a total of 100% damage increase. For a duration of about 20 seconds.
It
You can
caps at 50.
Oh, 50%. Sorry, I thought it was 100.
It's 50.
Okay, and then it also increases the damage you take, correct? By an equal
That's
amount?
correct.
Okay.
And it is also cleansable. And it is cleansable by Thorvin's Absolution.
Huh. Did not
Yeah,
know
that's
that.
how you don't die every time.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So you'll also see that the oak comes out with a buff on it, making him immune to all damage. The only way to damage him is to kill the monstrous overgrowth and bring him inside of the Crimson Mascades. Once you do so, the stacks will wear off of him, and you can blow him up with uh, your stacks of your own Crimson Mascades. So one thing to note is that the oak will cast Petrify. If that goes off, your raid is pretty much screwed.
You need interrupts to handle that. The alternate way to handle that is to make sure that there's no one within 5 meters except for the tank of the Petrified Genesis Oak. He requires at least three people in melee range in order to cast Petrify.
So eventually, once you kill both of the ads or the timer runs out, Greenscale will start casting Envenom Stormed. Do you want to explain what that is, since I'm still not really sure?
So, Envenom Storm has a very long cast time, and it's basically a warning to you that you have to kill the Petrified Genesis Oak. If you look at the Petrified Genesis Oak and the AoE buff it gives to the entire, well, debuff it gives to the entire raid, it increases the amount of damage you're going to take from Envenom Cloud by a ridiculous amount. So if the Petrified Genesis Oak is still alive at the time Envenom Cloud goes off, there's a good chance you're going to die.
So with the DPS gain that you get from the Crimson Mascade stacks, you'll probably be able to burn Greenscale to a fairly reasonable amount, but maybe 30% or so, making him go up into his 25% air phase relatively quickly. The only thing you want to watch out for is him hypertoxining the tank pretty much as soon as he lands. Also, one thing to note is that between 50 and 25% while Greenscale is on the ground, he will start casting Bracken, which at this point are stationary but will pulsate AoE damage, and he will also put these polyp looking things, I don't know how to describe it, on the ground where if you stand in it you'll take minor damage and get knocked back. Just basically stand out of both of them. For this phase, DPSing the Bracken really isn't worth it. Just stay out of it. At 25%, Greenscale will go back up in the air again for the final time. 2 Murderous Overgrowths this time will spawn. You're going to want to use Durns as soon as possible once again to purge their shields off. The difference here is that not only are there 2 of them, but more Noxious Bracken are spawning, and there are a ton of them spawning. They're also not stationary this time. They kind of move and follow people, which is really, really scary. I remember the first time I saw this fight, I kind of thought I was going to have nightmares for a really long time. So thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. The monstrous overgrowths in this regard are the exact same. You're going to want to interrupt Phytotoxin and the Vines ability. I forgot the name of it again.
Entangling Vines.
Entangling Vines, thank you. If you don't interrupt those, the exact same things happen, except the problem here is if you don't interrupt Entangling Vines, there's a very high probability you're going to be dragged through a lot of Bracken and probably die. The Bracken are still just dealing pulsating AoE.
Actually, they have a mana drain component and an energy drain component.
So there you go. They will steal your health and your mana or energy or power or whatever your class uses. So here's where Amunet is really critical. You can see it was used earlier in Phase 2 to freeze the ads, but here, if you don't freeze the ads, they will permanently get faster and faster and faster until they are apparently faster than a mount, is what I've been told. So
That's right.
you don't want that to happen, or else your raid is probably going to die. So when you kill the first monstrous overgrowth, the 3 Crimson Mascades will spawn as usual. Your entire raid is going to want to stack here, actually, weave in and out through the Bracken to get here, because you can see that they put a little glowing white area on the ground. Any Bracken who actually go in that area will be instantly killed, so it acts as somewhat of a safe zone. So once your entire raid is here, they will get the DPS buff and then kill the second monstrous overgrowth and continue to burn Greenscale until he hits 1%. Actually, I guess he lands, doesn't he? Again.
He will land, yes.
Yeah. So if you don't burn him fast enough, he will land. And then there also is a little segment where he casts Hypertoxin on Diona, it is? Or is it Durns?
Durns. It's Durns.
He will cast Hypertoxin on Durns. Mio gets annihilated by this, and I almost get annihilated by this. Your entire raid is going to want to stay away from Durns and know where she is at all times. That's guaranteed.
So that's actually a static position. She will always run to that location to try and cast Obsidian Arrow.
Okay, so yeah, you can see in our raid that she's just marked. So we stayed away from the mark, and some of us failed, myself included. So in this case, he comes back down, casts Hypertoxin. We use Unstable Transformation to mitigate it. At 1%, he will start the binding process. When Greenscale reaches 1%, he will start the binding process, and at the bottom of the screen, you can see the binding Greenscale happening. Do you want to take the rest of it from here, Anani? You probably know this a little bit better than I do. I've had some conflicting ideas about how a few of the mechanics work.
Right now, you're looking at the Drekanoth of Faith, who has a 140-degree frontal cleave AoE. He has a stacking purgeable buff that starts spawning those sparks of life in mass speed. He also casts a ground target effect on a person that after 10 seconds will detonate and do a meteor effect, which must be shared by at least 5 people or it will kill them.
And what mechanic is that? Is that purple?
That is, yes, it's the purple.
So my understanding was that the purple was a tank swap mechanic. It rooted the tank, and
it does root you in place, but it does not necessarily apply to the tank, and it can be mitigated by stacking people on top of each other.
Interesting. We always just treated it as a tank swap, essentially, and then just popped cooldowns.
And do you have Conqueror Greenscale?
No.
That would be why.
Also, one thing to note that we forgot about is that shield that he spawns with. You're going to need to burn down that shield and then interrupt his cast. End of days, I believe it's called.
Yes.
If you do not interrupt that, it will one-shot the entire raid and nothing will save you.
Actually, it 6-shots the entire raid over and over again to make sure that you die, life insurance people.
So once you reach the binding phase, after 100 seconds, the binding phase will complete and you win the fight. That is essentially Lord Greenscale. I don't think I missed anything. Sorry for how hectic that kind of was. It was fairly last minute, and I wasn't really sure how it would turn out, but I guess there's kind of always a time to try something new, and if it didn't work, I'll know for next time to not do this. As noted previously, this will be the final episode pre 1.3, as progression will soon pick up, and I kind of need to get on top of that, and that'll keep me busy for sure. Hopefully, I'll have the time to continue making these guides as long as you guys want me to. I'd like to also thank Anani for coming as well and taking his time. Do you have anything else to say?
The Drekanoth of Fate will be back.
That is good to hear. He was always not very welcome in some of those boss fights, so I'll be looking forward to hopefully killing him.
That's a possibility, but you're also going to get his crown in the near future.
I look forward to seeing what happens. So yeah, thanks again for coming, and this is the final episode for now. Maybe. We'll see.
Probably not.